I'll be honest, this whole mess started because my brother, Jake, assumes the world bends around him. He's the kind of guy who books a trip before asking anyone for help, then acts shocked when people can't rearrange their lives for him. So a couple of weeks ago, he calls me up, all excited. Guess what, dude? I finally booked my trip. 2 months across Europe. Backpacking, trains, all of it. I leave in March. At first, I was genuinely happy for him. Jake's been talking about this trip for years, and it actually sounded amazing. I was about to say something supportive when he tacked on the real reason for the call. And you'll be watching Buddy while I'm gone, right? Buddy is his golden retriever. Sweet dog, but also a lot of work. He sheds like crazy, needs 2 long walks a day, and gets separation anxiety if he's left alone too long. I love Buddy, but he's not mine. I laughed at first, thinking he was joking. Wait, 2 months? You want me to have your dog for 2 entire months? Yeah. Jake said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. It'll be good for you. You're home most of the time anyway, and Buddy loves you. I felt my stomach sink. See, I work from home, but I actually do have a job. I take calls, I have deadlines, and my apartment isn't exactly dog-proof. I don't even have a yard. Jake, I can't commit to that. 2 months is basically being a full-time dog owner. That's a lot to ask. He got quiet for a second, then said, So what? You're just gonna let me cancel my trip? And that's when I realized he had already decided I'd say yes. I told him no again, tried to explain my reasons, but he cut me off with, You're being selfish. It's family. Family helps each other out. I'd do it for you in a heartbeat. Here's the thing. Jake has never done anything like this for me. Not once. Anytime I've needed help, he's too busy or out of town. But now suddenly, because it's convenient for him, I'm supposed to turn my life upside down for 2 months? The call ended with him saying, Fine. Whatever. I'll figure it out. His tone was sharp, and I knew he was mad. I thought that would be the end of it. But then my mom called. Why can't you just help your brother? She asked, disappointment dripping in her voice. He's been looking forward to this trip for years. You don't even have kids or a spouse. What's stopping you? That one hit me hard. Because apparently my life doesn't count as important since I'm single and child-free. Now the whole family group chat is lighting up with subtle digs at me. Some people don't know the meaning of sacrifice. Must be nice to have so much free time and not help your own brother. Stuff like that. It's honestly making me question myself. Maybe I am being too harsh. Maybe I should just suck it up and do it. But at the same time, I can't shake this sinking feeling that if I agree, Jake will just take advantage again. And the worst part? Last night, Jake texted me a photo of Buddy with the caption, Don't make me put him in a kennel. He'll be miserable without you. It feels like emotional blackmail. Now I'm stuck wondering if I'm the bad guy here, or if I'm the only one seeing this situation clearly. Because if I cave, what else will Jake expect from me in the future? I didn't sleep after that text with the picture of Buddy. I just lay there staring at the ceiling fan and replaying every time in my life that I'd said yes to Jake because it was easier than arguing. Helping him move twice. Covering his half of our dad's birthday dinner because his card wasn't working. Watching Buddy for a weekend that turned into 5 days when his work trip got extended. If I'm honest, it's not even about the dog. It's about the pattern. In the morning, I called my friend Mia, who's brutally practical and has a way of cutting through the fog in my brain. Okay, she said, 2 months is a lot. But before we set the boundary in stone, what are the options? Kennel? Sitter? Split rotation? I looked up some boarding places, I said, opening my laptop. The good ones are booked for spring. The ones with space are not great. And he's already insisting Buddy would be miserable. Of course he is, she said. That's his leverage. But let's be realistic. Dogs survive boarding. Also, Jake is the one choosing to travel for fun, not for a medical emergency. I sighed and rubbed my eyes. If I say yes, I'll resent him. If I say no, I'll be painted as the selfish brother. Or, she said, you say no, and then you help him find a solution that doesn't involve you turning your life upside down. That's allowed. Buoyed by her tone, I typed out a message to Jake outlining options. A highly rated sitter on Rover with backyard access, a local trainer who does structured boarding for anxious dogs, and the idea of splitting time between family members who offered actually viable help. I even added that I'd chip in for the first week if it helped him get over the cost. He didn't respond for 2 hours. In the meantime, the family group chat lit up. Mom, I remember Uncle Ray watched our dog when we went to Niagara Falls. Family helps family. Aunt Nora. 2 months is a lot, though. Can the trip be shorter? Jake. He works from home and lives alone. He literally told me he wants to get more exercise. But he would help that. It's like I'm offering him a wellness coach for free. My phone buzzed with a separate incoming call. It was my mom. Honey, she started in that voice, the same one she used when I was in middle school and forgot my lunch. Your brother finally booked this trip. He has been saving for years. Why is this so hard? Because 2 months is long, I said, keeping my voice steady. Because my lease doesn't allow pets for more than 2 weeks without written approval. Because my job requires calls and quiet. Because I don't want to be responsible if something goes wrong. But nothing will go wrong, she said immediately, like she could manifest it by saying it. He trusts you with Buddy. That's not how responsibility works, I said. Also, has anyone asked how it affects me? My apartment's small. The building manager is strict. Buddy has separation anxiety. I'm not just strolling through meadows while he naps on my feet. There was a pause. Well, your cousin Ryan could take him for a bit. But he has the twins on weekends. That's what I'm saying, I said. If 5 people each do a week, it's manageable. I'll do one of those weeks. I can't do 8. I'll talk to your brother, she said. But it felt more like a promise to talk me into something. I sent Jake one more message with all the options and a very clear sentence. I am not available to watch Buddy for 2 months. I can help for 1 week. After that, you'll need to arrange paid care or a rotation. 10 minutes later, he finally replied, You're being dramatic. It's a dog, not a toddler. Then, a follow-up. Also, figured you'd say no, so I already told my landlord and the vet that you're the caregiver while I'm gone. Easier for emergencies. Saves everyone paperwork. You're the backup on file. THX. My stomach dropped. I called him immediately. Straight to voicemail. I texted, What does that even mean? Were you allowed to put me down? He sent me a thumbs up, then a picture of his plane ticket, March 4th to May 6th. 2 months to the day. Mia texted right then. How'd it go? I sent her a screenshot of his messages. She replied with 3 dots. Then, he can't just assign you guardian of his dog like it's a houseplant. Call the vet and ask what backup on file means. And check your lease about the pet clause. So I called the vet clinic listed on Buddy's tag. The receptionist, cheerful but tired, confirmed that yes, I was listed as emergency contact and secondary owner. My name, my number, my address. I didn't sign anything, I said. It looks like the form was filled out online when they transferred clinics last year, she said. For the record, being listed as secondary means we can contact you if we can't reach primary, and you can authorize care if it's a life or death situation. We always try the primary first. Can he just make me financially responsible? No, she said. But if a pet is dropped off and needs care and we can't reach anyone, sometimes we treat to stabilize. It can get complicated. Complicated. My least favorite word. After that call, I went downstairs to check my mailbox and ran into Ms. Lee, the building manager. She was carrying a stack of packages and wearing her usual crisp blazer like the lobby was a boardroom. Morning, she said. Oh, by the way, I got your email about noise concerns last month. We had the upstairs tenant add a rug. Thanks, I said, and before I could stop myself. Quick question. What's our policy on pets for guests? She tilted her head. We allow visiting pets for up to 14 days in a calendar year if they're registered temporarily and the resident is responsible for any damage. Anything longer requires a pet addendum and deposit. Why? Just curious, I said, trying to keep my face neutral. My brother has a dog. Oh, the golden retriever you've walked here a few times? Her eyes warmed. Lovely dog. Just keep me posted if he visits. We've had issues in the past with long-term visitors becoming permanent. I nodded, thanked her, and went back upstairs feeling like the walls were getting closer. That afternoon, Jake finally called. I took a breath and answered. He dove in without a greeting. You're making this so complicated. 2 months isn't the end of the world. You work from home. You can walk Buddy before your calls and at lunch and at night. He's chill. You'll barely notice he's there. Jake, I said. We both know that's not true. He needs 2 long walks. He sheds. He gets anxious. And I can't leave him alone for 8 hours if I need to go into the office. Also, my building doesn't allow long-term pets without a deposit and paperwork. Also, I didn't consent to being listed on your vet forms. Silence. Then, you always make everything about rules. I am trying to live my life. I am not your safety net, I said. My voice shook, but I kept going. I'm offering 1 week. I'll even help set up a sitter for the rest. That's generous. He snorted. Generous would be saying yes. Family would say yes. If you cared about me, you would say yes. I felt the anger spike. If you cared about me, you would ask before you planned your trip. You would budget for your dog like a responsible owner. Stop lecturing me, he said, and then his voice went brittle, theatrical. I guess I'll cancel everything, lose my deposits, and tell my friends my own brother wouldn't help me. Don't you dare make me your excuse, I said. You decided to go? You're responsible for making care arrangements. If you can't afford a sitter, you can't afford to travel for 2 months. He took a sharp breath. Fine. If you won't help me, you won't help me. The line clicked dead. I stood there in my kitchen, the hum of the fridge suddenly loud. The text arrived a minute later, dropping Buddy off Friday at 7 a.m. You'll do the right thing once you see his face. A calendar invite followed, titled Buddy Drop-Off, with my address. I could feel the old pattern tug at me. Accept the inevitability, let him steamroll me, convince myself it wasn't a big deal. But Mia's voice cut through. A boundary is only a boundary if you're willing to hold it when it's inconvenient. I typed back, do not drop him off. I won't be home. If you leave him here unattended, I will call animal control for an abandoned pet. I'm not playing around, Jake. He didn't reply. I paced my living room, then sat at my laptop and drafted a careful email to Ms. Lee. Hi. Just a heads up that my brother may attempt to leave his dog with me while he travels. I've told him I can't host for more than a week. If you see him trying to enter with kennel supplies, please stop him and call me. I want to follow building policy. I sent Mia a summary. She sent back, proud of you. Also, set up a camera at your door just in case. Document everything. I set my phone on the counter and tried to breathe normally. For a few hours I managed to work. Buddy's picture on my phone, big brown eyes, tongue lolling out, kept popping into my head. Guilt twisted in my gut, then anger, then guilt again, seesawing like I was 12. That night my mom called again, and first thing out of her mouth was, I wish you two would stop being dramatic. It's a dog. It's his dog, I said, and he's putting me in a position that risks my housing and job. Well, I told him not to leave Buddy without you agreeing. He said you'll come around. I won't, I said, forcing myself to say it like a steady truth and not a question. 1 week, Mom. I'll do 1 week later in the trip to give the sitter a break. That's it. She exhaled into the phone, disappointment wrapped in static. You used to watch him when he first got Buddy. For a weekend, I said. Not 60 days. We hung up more gently than before, but I could feel her judgment hanging in the air like smoke. I set my alarm for early Friday anyway, just in case. At 6:55 a.m., I stood by my door with my phone camera open, heart drumming against my ribs. At 7:03, there was no Jake. At 7:07, no Jake. At 7:10, I allowed myself to breathe, to think maybe he'd finally heard me. At 7:12 a.m., rideshare pulled up. I recognized Jake's backpack from across the street. He stepped out, set down Buddy's bag of toys and food, clipped the leash to the railing outside my door, ruffled Buddy's ears, and started back toward the car without even looking up at my window. My thumb hit record so hard I almost dropped the phone. I flung the door open. Jake! He froze, hand on the car door. Buddy perked up and tugged toward me, tail helicoptering. Don't do this, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. He looked me dead in the eye, and for a second I saw the little boy who used to hand me broken toys to fix and wait without doubt, because I always did. Then his jaw set. I have to get to the airport. You leave that dog tied here, and I am calling animal control, I said. I mean it. He glanced at Buddy, then at me. You won't do that, he said softly. You love him. He slid into the car, and the door shut with a dull thud. I looked down at Buddy, happy, trusting, leaning his whole warm shoulder into my leg, and my phone started buzzing with a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, still staring at the leash looped around the railing. Hello, I said. This is Ms. Lee, said the voice. Your brother just informed the front desk he's leaving his dog with you for the next 2 months. I'm at your door in 2 minutes with paperwork. We need to talk about a lease violation. I swallowed hard, one hand on Buddy's collar, the other still holding a recording of my brother walking away. And that's when someone else's footsteps pounded up the stairs behind Ms. Lee's voice. Too fast, too urgent, and a fist knocked hard on my door before she could arrive. The door swung inward, and it wasn't Ms. Lee at the door. It was Mr. Alvarez from 2B, the guy with the impeccably trimmed beard and constant smell of aftershave that somehow clings to the hallway. "Hey," he said, a little out of breath. "Sorry to barge in, but I saw your brother run out and leave the dog. Is everything okay? Also, Ms. Lee is on warpath mode." "Not okay," I said. Buddy pressed against my knee like a living sandbag, tongue draped from his mouth, joyful for no reason other than existing. "I told my brother I couldn't take him for 2 months. He's doing it anyway." Alvarez looked down at Buddy and then back up at me as if doing some private calculation. "Do you want me to hang with the dog while you talk to Ms. Lee? He seems friendly." "That would actually help," I said, looping the leash into his hand. "Buddy, stay." Buddy sat instantly, tail sweeping the baseboard like a broom. Of course he was being perfect at this exact moment. Ms. Lee arrived with a clipboard, her low heels clicking like punctuation. "I need to be very clear," she said, looking from me to Alvarez to Buddy. "We cannot have unauthorized long-term pets. We've had damage in the past, chewed doors, scratched floors, noise complaints. The lease specifies 14 days maximum unless you sign the addendum and pay the deposit." "I know," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I emailed you about this. He did this without my consent." She glanced down at the clipboard. "He just left a message with the front desk stating he's gone until May and that you're the caregiver." I tapped my phone screen to pull up the recording of him leaving the dog and the text where I told him not to. I did not agree to this. "I can keep the dog for today, so he's not left alone, and then I'll arrange for him to be boarded by tomorrow. But I cannot keep him for 2 months." Her eyes softened by a millimeter. "Today is fine. If the dog is still here tomorrow, we will need you to sign the addendum and pay the deposit, or we'll issue a notice." "I don't want to do that, but my job is the rules." "Understood," I said. She nodded toward Buddy. "He's cute," she added, almost reluctantly, and then, as if she remembered who she was, squared her shoulders and left. I closed the door and looked at Mr. Alvarez. "Thank you for not leaving me to face that alone." "No problem," he said, scratching Buddy's ear. "He's a handsome boy. I have a meeting in 15, but I can give you a minute to get organized. Want coffee? I've got a French press." "I love you," I blurted, then quickly corrected. I appreciate you." He laughed. "I'll consider that legally binding." Once he left, I clicked into crisis mode. I called 3 boarding facilities. The first 2 were full. The third had a wait list, but a possibility if someone canceled. I made a profile on Rover, messaged 2 sitters, and scheduled a same-day meet and greet with a woman named Carrie who specialized in anxious dogs. I texted Mia, who sent a string of celebratory emojis for taking action, and then document every expense. Screenshot every attempt to contact him. Paper trail is your friend. The paper trail was already ugly. I called Jake twice, voicemail. I sent him a text. "You left Buddy here against my clear no. I am arranging boarding for tomorrow. If you don't want that, pick him up by tonight at 8 p.m. Otherwise, I'll go with the plan I can actually execute. Also, you need to send money for deposit and first week. This is your responsibility." No response. At 10, my boss Devin slacked me. "Hey, remember we've got that noon client strategy call? Can you lead the competitor section?" Normally, I'd be ready days in advance, but my brain was a mess. I shoved guilt into a mental drawer, put Buddy on a soft blanket in the corner with a chew, and opened my slide deck. Buddy made it exactly 9 minutes before standing up, padding over, and laying his entire head across my lap with a sigh loud enough to be its own weather system. My heart did that inconvenient squeeze again. I scratched the velvet of his ears. "You're a good boy," I told him, and he leaned harder, as if to say, "I know, now never move again." At 11:30, Carrie texted, running 10 minutes early. "I'll meet you outside so he can sniff me first." I leashed Buddy, grabbed a bag of treats, and we headed to the sidewalk. Carrie arrived in a soft blue jacket with treat pouches I would bet were alphabetized. She crouched sideways, not making eye contact with Buddy at first, let him sniff her hand, and then offered a treat. Buddy took it, wagged, and then as soon as I stepped half a foot away to give them space, he let out a high keening whine that turned into a full-body, operatic lament. "Oh," Carrie said gently, "he really doesn't want you to go far." "He does this," I said, cheeks flushing. Separation anxiety. She tried to walk him to the corner and back. He went, looking over his shoulder every 3 steps like someone being escorted to a shuttle they didn't book, and when they turned around, he bounded directly to me, pressing his side into my shins. Carrie looked apologetic. I can work with anxiety, but this is severe. He'd need a few acclimation sessions before a full overnight. I wouldn't feel good taking him tonight. He'll panic. I nodded, throat tightening. Thanks for being honest. I can recommend a trainer who does structured boarding, she said, sending me a contact. They do crate conditioning and short departures to make it easier. But it's not cheap, and there's usually a wait. Of course there was. I thanked her, and we went back upstairs, Buddy glued so close to my leg we nearly climbed the stairs as one unit. The noon call was a circus. I spoke with my camera off so no one would see. I was throwing a rubber ball down the hall between bullet points like I was juggling with my toes. Twice Buddy barked at a delivery truck, and I had to mute mid-sentence. Devin messaged me after. Let's regroup later. Sounded like a lot going on. I typed, long story. Family thing. I'll be fully focused tomorrow. I didn't mention the dog. I should have. I didn't. At 2 p.m., Mom called. Your brother texted from the airport. He says you threatened to call animal control. I did, I said, because he tried to abandon his dog at my door to force my hand. You make it sound so harsh. It is harsh, I said, pacing the kitchen while Buddy tracked me like a furry sunbeam. He didn't ask. He told. He also listed me as secondary owner without my permission. She was quiet long enough that I thought the call dropped. He told me you'd always said Buddy was like your dog, too. I said I loved him, I said. That's not the same as assuming legal and financial responsibility for 60 days. People say a lot when they're not expecting to be held to it, she said, with a little sting that made me think I wasn't just arguing with Jake anymore. I was arguing with a lifetime of be the good son. Mom, I said softer, please don't make this a referendum on my character. I'm doing what I can. I'm arranging boarding for tomorrow. I'll cover the deposit to get him in the door if I have to, and Jake can pay me back. She exhaled. I'll see if your Aunt Nora can take him for a week later in the month. Thank you, I said, meaning it. At 3, Ms. Lee slid a paper under my door. Reminder, pet must be registered or removed by tomorrow at 5 p.m. to avoid violation notice. She had underlined 5 p.m. twice. Buddy booped the paper with his nose and then tried to carry it like a prize. At 4, my phone buzzed with an international number. Jake, finally. I answered with a mix of anger and relief. Hey, he said, voice thin with airport echo. They're boarding us. You left your dog at my door, I said, not bothering with hello. You love him, he said, like that explained gravity. I do, I said. Enough to make sure he's cared for properly. I found a structured boarding program that can take him tomorrow if someone cancels. Failing that, I have a sitter who can do daytime with acclimation and then nights here for a few days, but that violates my lease. I need you to authorize payment to either option. I can't afford that and the trip, he said immediately. That's why I asked you. You're not struggling. You eat out. You buy those fancy coffee beans. Those beans cost $14, I snapped. A week of boarding is $500 plus. So help me, he said. I'd help you if the roles were reversed. I paused, because that was the crux, wasn't it? Would he? The evidence said no, but the belief he held about himself said yes. This isn't about whether you're a good person in your head, I said quietly. It's about choices. You chose to book a 2-month trip without making a plan for your dog. Now you want me to pay for the consequences. He was silent. In the background, a boarding announcement. Then he said, smaller, I didn't think it would be this big a deal. That's the problem, I said. You didn't think. You assumed. He sighed. Look, they're telling us to turn off phones. The vet bag is in Buddy's stuff with his meds and food. He needs the little white pill 3 times a day. If he doesn't get it, he gets shaky. Pill, I said, stomach dropping. What pill? His anxiety meds, Jake said, like it was nothing. They're labeled. It's fine. Before I could ask anything else, the line cut, replaced by a dull international dial tone. My phone dinged with a text, a photo of a prescription bottle with Buddy's name and Clonaz. I didn't finish reading because my door rattled with another knock. Ms. Lee again? I picked up Buddy's leash just in case. It wasn't Ms. Lee. It was a courier holding a small insulated bag. Delivery for Jake, he said, checking his phone. To be left with you? What is it? I asked. He handed it to me and walked away before I could ask more. Inside, among ice packs, was a note. Buddy's additional meds. Use as needed if he has a seizure. Instructions in the bag. My pulse thudded in my ears. Seizure? I pulled out the folded paper, hands shaking, and read the scrawled line. If tremors escalate, give Rectalgia. I stopped. My vision tunneled, the edges of the world blurring. I looked at Buddy, sweet, smiling, oblivious, and then at the clock. It was 4:12 p.m. I had less than 24 hours to find a legal, safe place for him. My brother was in the air. My boss expected deliverables tomorrow. My building expected compliance. And I apparently had a dog with a seizure plan sitting on my rug. The phone buzzed again. A new text from an unknown number. Hi. You don't know me. I'm Tommy. I matched with Jake on a travel app. He gave me your address to pick up Buddy's crate and stuff for him later. Said the dog will be with you till May. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. 1,000 frantic responses backed up behind my teeth. Because it wasn't just the dog anymore. It was that suddenly I was holding a bag of emergency medication I hadn't agreed to manage, and someone I'd never met was on their way to collect parts of a plan I had never consented to. And then Buddy let out a sound, half whine, half yawn, and his front paw twitched like a hiccup. Just once. Then again. The twitching stopped as quickly as it started, and Buddy shook himself, collar jingling like a polite bell. I crouched, ran hands over his legs, checked his gums the way I'd seen YouTube vets do when looking for who knows what. He licked my knuckles and leaned into my shoulder like he was trying to merge with me. I breathed again. Okay, one thing at a time. I texted Tommy, please don't come by. That plan changed. I'll reach out if we need anything. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Nothing else came through. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb for everyone except Mia, Mom, and Ms. Lee. I called the vet clinic again. Hi, it's me. Buddy's secondary not by choice owner. I need to know what meds he's on, what for, and what happens if he misses a dose. The receptionist put me on hold, and then came back with a calm clinical voice that made me both grateful and slightly queasy. Buddy has a history of stress-induced tremors. He's on daily anti-anxiety medication and has a rescue medication in case of seizure activity. If he misses a dose, he may be more anxious, potentially tremorous. If he has full body shaking that doesn't stop within a minute, it's an emergency. Okay, I said. I have his daily meds. We're good for a week? There was a pause as she clicked keys. Looks like his refill is due in 5 days. We'll need the primary owner to authorize and pay for the refill. Primary owner is on a plane, I said, and he listed me as secondary without my consent. I'm sorry, she said genuinely. We can't bill a secondary without explicit authorization. If there's an emergency, we can treat and sort it out after, but for routine refills we need the primary. Got it, I said, and hung up, feeling like the ground had tilted. Mia arrived with 2 iced coffees and a bag of muffins like a tiny cavalry. Buddy greeted her like a celebrity, wiggling so hard his back legs struggled to keep up. Okay, she said, setting everything on the counter. We make a plan. First, tell your boss you're dealing with a family medical situation. Don't lie about the dog if you don't want to, but set expectations. Second, we hustle on boarding. Third, we loop in your mom with the seizure meds detail, because that is a whole new level. I texted Devin. Heads up, I have an unexpected family medical situation today and possibly tomorrow morning. I'll still hit deadlines, but I may need to shift times. I'll keep you posted. It felt like soft dishonesty, but I couldn't stomach typing. My brother airdropped me his dog and his seizure kit. Devin replied, take care of what you need to. Just keep me updated. We've got your back. I exhaled so hard my shoulders dropped. Okay, one domino not toppling. We called the structured boarding place Carrie had recommended. We have an opening starting Sunday, the receptionist said, but we require a 1-day acclimation session first. Also, because of his medical needs, there's a $25 per day medication administration fee, and we'll need the owner to sign the contract. The owner is out of the country, I said. Can I sign as secondary? Our policy is primary owner unless there's a power of attorney, she said. But if we can reach him by email to confirm, that can work. Reach him by email, I repeated, adding it to the list of miracles. Okay, Sunday is something. That still leaves today and tomorrow, Mia said when I hung up. Right, I said. We need a sitter who can do an overnight tonight, and then tomorrow during the day until 5. then Sunday acclimation, then boarding. We found a sitter named Alicia who had stellar reviews and specifically mentioned experience with anxious dogs and medical administration. She responded within 5 minutes. I can do overnight tonight at your place if that's allowed. I do in-home sits to help anxious pups. I can arrive at 7 p.m. I glanced at Ms. Lee's underlined 5 p.m. and did quick mental math. Alicia being here might technically still mean the dog is here after 5, but if we're registered for a one-day arrangement and have a plan for Sunday, maybe Ms. Lee would grant grace. I emailed Ms. Lee with every detail, every plan, the structured boarding appointment, the sitter proof, the vet confirmation of meds. I included the recording of Jake leaving and the text where I said no. It felt aggressive, but at this point documentation was the only shield I had. At 4:10 p.m., Ms. Lee replied, "Thank you for the thorough explanation. Given the circumstances, I can extend to Sunday 10 a.m. If the dog is in the unit after that without paperwork, I'll have to issue the notice." I could have kissed my inbox. At 4:50 p.m., there was a knock. Ms. Lee again, but with a surprisingly soft expression and a temporary pet registration form. "You're trying," she said, handing me a pen. "Sign here for a 2-day visitor tag. We'll call it a grace registration." "Thank you," I said, relief loosening the knot in my chest. Buddy, charmer that he is, sat and offered her a paw with meticulous politeness. She cracked a smile. At 6:45, Mia left, promising to come back tomorrow if I needed backup. At 7:05, Alicia arrived with a calm energy that seemed to drape the room in soft blankets. She let Buddy sniff her, then sat on the floor and talked to him for a few minutes in a low, steady voice that reminded me of guided meditations. He gave her the same mournful song when I walked to the kitchen, but it tapered faster this time, his eyes tracking her instead of just me. "You're doing great," she whispered to him. To me, she said, "You should sleep in your room with the door cracked. I'll take the couch. If he panics, I'll bring him to you. But I want to start teaching him it's okay to be near someone else." For the first time all day, a thin thread of hope pulled through the chaos. "Thank you," I said. At 9:30 p.m., I lay in bed listening to soft dog snores and Alicia's page turning in the living room. My phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Your aunt can take Buddy April 2nd to 9th. That helps a little." I thanked her and said I'd put it into the schedule. I didn't send a picture of the seizure bag. I didn't have the energy for her worry on top of mine. At 1:14 a.m., I woke to Alicia's whisper at my door. "Hey," she said softly. "He's pacing. Tremors starting." My heart lurched me upright. Buddy was standing in the dim, head low, front paw twitching again. Not the dramatic full body shaking the vet mentioned, but enough that fear climbed my throat like a vine. Alicia had her palm on his chest. "I think we're okay," she murmured. I gave him his regular dose earlier. Sometimes new environments trigger flares. "Let's sit with him." We sat on the rug together, a triangle of quiet anchored by a dog who leaned from one to the other like he was bridging two islands. The tremors eased after a minute, then stopped. I exhaled, shook out my hands. "See," Alicia whispered to Buddy. "You did it. Brave boy." He rested his chin on my knee and sighed, so long it seemed to empty him all the way to his tail. At 7:10 a.m., as I was making coffee, my phone pinged with an email from Jake. "At hostel. No service last night. Sounds like you got it handled. You're the best. Send pics of Buddy on walks. Also, I got a great deal on a rail pass." I stared at the screen, the hot wave rising so fast it made me lightheaded. He was just across the world. Asking for pictures like this was a cute arrangement we'd agreed on. There was a second email, too, forwarded from the boarding facility. "Please confirm you authorize Buddy to be boarded starting Sunday. Rate attached, meds fee, signature required." The field for the signature was blank. He hadn't even clicked it. I forwarded it to him with "Please sign today." Then I added, because I couldn't help myself, "You didn't tell me he had a seizure plan." He replied 10 minutes later, "He almost never needs it. Don't freak out." Something in me snapped, not loud but decisive, like a curtain being pulled. I opened a new email and wrote to my mom, Aunt Nora, and our family chat BCC'd. "Here is the current plan and the cost. Here are the dates I can help. 1 week. Here is the boarding facility that needs Jake's signature. Here are the vet's notes. If the signature and first week's payment aren't completed by noon, I will do what I can that is safe and legal for Buddy, and I will not be guilted into more." I hit send, heart pounding. Alicia raised an eyebrow at me from the couch, like she could feel it. You okay? I think so, I said. I think I finally said it. At 10:02 a.m., Ms. Lee slid another paper under my door. Not a notice. A sticky note. Good luck. It felt like a blessing. At 11:46 a.m., just as I was about to call the boarding place and beg for a supervisor to accept my signature, my phone rang with the vet clinic's caller ID. Hello? I answered, bracing for another rule I couldn't bend. Hi, the receptionist said. Quick heads up. We received a request from the microchip registry to update Buddy's secondary contact to primary. It looks like the form came through with your name. Did you submit that? I blinked. No, I didn't. She said. Then someone else did. Maybe the microchip company is auto-updating based on the vet record. It happens. We'll flag it. Please don't, I said quickly, panic prickling my skin. I'm not his owner. Understood, she said. We'll keep the current status. But just so you know, if animal control scans him and your name pops as primary, they'll call you first. I hung up and stared at Buddy, who stared back like a person. Don't look at me like that, I told him. I'm not adopting you. He thumped his tail once, slow. And then there was another knock. Not timid. Not Ms. Lee. A hard, loud pounding that rattled the frame. Alicia shot me a look. I glanced at the peephole and felt my stomach climb into my throat. It was a stranger with a camera and a shirt with a local pet advocacy logo I recognized from Instagram. Behind him, two more people hovered, one holding a phone already recording. The man leaned into the peephole like he could see me through it and called out, Hi, we're here about Buddy. We saw a story online that you're trying to steal him while his owner travels. We just want to talk. My phone vibrated at that exact second with a new notification from Jake's social media. A story post, a picture of Buddy, and a caption, My brother is threatening to rehome my dog while I'm traveling. Anyone know a good lawyer? My vision went cold. He'd turned the internet into a weapon, and now it was standing at my door. I backed away from the peephole like it was a snake. Alicia set a steadying hand on Buddy's collar. He lifted his head, ears tilting towards the voices in the hall. Don't open it, she whispered. I'm not, I said too quickly. My phone buzzed again with a DM request from a username that included my last name spelled wrong and 3 dog emojis. We're outside your door. We just want to talk. Why are you taking a dog from his loving owner? I put the phone face down like that would make them disappear. Alicia was already moving, closing the blinds, turning off the TV, making the apartment look like nobody was home. She was efficient in a way that told me this wasn't her first time tempering conflict for the sake of an animal. The voices outside grew louder, then passed, then returned. Are we sure this is the unit? Someone asked. Buddy gave a soft, curious woof. Alicia stroked his ruff. Shoo, sweet boy. My hands were shaking. I took a picture of Jake's story post before it could vanish. Then another of the people outside through the peephole, their faces distorted like funhouse mirrors. I typed a message to Jake. Take the story down. Now, you are putting me at risk. I have documented that you abandoned your dog at my door after I said no. I am arranging legal, safe care. Remove it. No response. Mia called. Do not engage, she said when I answered. If they don't leave, call the non-emergency line. Also, screenshot everything. You need a timeline. We waited. The voices drifted down the hall. After 5 minutes, nothing. 10 minutes. 15. Alicia exhaled. I think they left. I was halfway to unclenching when my phone rang again. Ms. Lee. There are people recording in the hallway, she said, clipped like scissor blades. They said they're here for a dog situation. I'm calling security. Pull your shades and don't answer the door. If they knock again, call 311. I didn't invite them, I said, my voice tight. My brother posted online. I figured, she said, and I heard the pity under her frustration. I'll clear them out. I stood in the darkened living room, the iced coffee now warm on the counter, and felt the edges of myself blur. This was supposed to be simple, say no. But nothing stays simple around Jake. It always metastasizes. At noon, Devin messaged, How's it going? Need anything from me? The words made my throat burn. People showing up with cameras, meds on the counter, boarding forms open on my laptop like a lifeline I couldn't grab. I typed, It's a mess, but I'm handling it. I may need to log off this afternoon to manage some appointments. I'll make up the time this weekend. He sent back a thumbs up and a smile I chose to interpret as trust. At 1, The boarding facility emailed. We have a cancellation. We can do the acclimation session tomorrow at 9 a.m., then start boarding Sunday. My whole body exhaled. I forwarded to Jake again with "sign this" in the subject line. At 1:22, he replied, "I'm on a train. Chill. Also, why did you tell people I abandoned Buddy?" Someone DM'd me a screen recording. Then, as if the thought had just floated into his head, "Send me a cute picture of him?" I stared at the text like it was written in another language. I typed and erased 4 different responses, then settled on, "Sign the boarding contract and pay the deposit. Or come get your dog. Those are the options." He sent back a rolling eyes emoji. Alicia and I took Buddy for a long, slow walk around the quiet streets behind the complex, avoiding the busy corner where people might linger. The air was just on the edge of spring, the kind that makes neighborhood lawns smell like cold dirt and imagination. Buddy trotted, sniffing every second bush like it contained state secrets. For a while, I forgot everything else. At home, we practiced short departures. Alicia took him into the bedroom and closed the door while I stood in the hall, counted to 30, came back, treat, praise, repeat. Each time his whine started a half decibel lower, ended a second sooner. Progress, microscopic, but there. At 3, a new message pinged in the family chat from Aunt Nora. "Just saw Jake's post. What is going on?" My mom answered, "Please don't discuss this online." Then to me privately, I told him to take it down. He said he will when you stop threatening him. "I'm not threatening," I said aloud to nobody. Alicia looked over from where she was rolling a tennis ball under her foot like a meditation bead. "I'm not right. You're setting a limit," she said. "He doesn't like limits. That's different." At 4, the vet called again with a quick update. Jake had authorized the refill via the online portal. Victory, small and utilitarian. I measured out Buddy's evening dose with the shaky concentration of someone defusing a movie bomb, and then watched him lick peanut butter from the spoon with the single-minded joy of a creature who understands needs and meets them without shame. At 5, I emailed Ms. Lee with the update and the boarding start date. She replied, "Thank you. Sunday 10 a.m., checkout stands." At 6, I heated leftover soup while Alicia took Buddy for a slow block. She came back smiling, cheeks pink, a little wind tangled in her hair. "He met a beagle named Mabel," she said. "They wagged like metronomes and then decided each other's smells were boring." I laughed for what felt like the first time in 2 days. The sound startled me. We were almost through the evening when my phone buzzed with a number labeled unknown, out of area. I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again. Same label. And again. The third time I answered, ready to tell a telemarketer I didn't need new windows. "Is this my name?" a low voice asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. "This is Officer Chun with Animal Control," he said, polite but official. "We received an anonymous complaint about a neglected dog at your address. We're required to follow up. I'm outside your building." My mouth went dry. "He is not neglected," I said, trying and failing to keep my voice level. "He is my brother's dog. My brother left him with me without my consent yesterday morning. I have documentation. He's fed, walked, medicated, and scheduled for boarding on Sunday." "I believe you," he said, to my surprise. "But I need to see the animal and verify condition." I hung up and looked at Alicia. She nodded once. "I'll be here. It's okay. Show them everything." We met Officer Chun in the lobby. He was compact, kind-eyed, the kind of person who looks like he knows how to hold a frightened animal and a frightened human without hurting either. He examined Buddy with gentle hands, checked his gums, listened with a small stethoscope he pulled from a pocket like a magician with a very specific trick. "Healthy," he said. "Well cared for. Beautiful coat. Great demeanor." He glanced at me. "Can I ask what happened?" I told him the short version. No consent, forced drop-off, building policy, meds, boarding. I showed him the texts, the vet emails, the boarding contract awaiting signature. He listened without interrupting, then jotted notes. "I'm going to close the neglect complaint," he said. "However, I need to tell you something in case things escalate. If an owner leaves a dog with someone against their will and refuses to make arrangements, in some jurisdictions, it can be considered abandonment. There is a process to declare abandonment and legally transfer custody to a rescue after a waiting period, but that varies." "I don't want to take his dog," I said quickly. "I just want to not have my life rearranged because he made a choice without me." "I understand," he said. "Document everything." If you feel unsafe because of online posts, contact the police. We see that sometimes with pet disputes. His mouth twisted in a wry line that said more than sometimes. Back upstairs, Buddy flopped onto his side and rolled to present his belly, the universal sign for, I assume you'll do the right thing because I am pure. I rubbed his chest until his eyes slid half closed. Alicia gathered her things. Text me if the tremors happen again tonight, she said. I'll come back. After she left, the apartment felt too quiet. I sat on the floor next to Buddy because sitting on the couch felt like pretending everything was normal. My phone pinged with a new DM, this one from a real name I recognized as my cousin Ryan. Hey man, saw Jake's story. What's happening? Do you need me to call him? I typed back, please don't pile on. He thrives on attention. If you can, text him privately and tell him to take it down, sign the boarding contract, and stop sending people to my door. Ryan replied with a single, blessed, got it. At 10:30 p.m., I turned off the lights. Buddy settled on his blanket with a sigh so content it made my chest ache. I lay awake listening for the sound of tremors and made a list in my head like a prayer. Boarding contract, and signed. Deposit, not paid. Vet meds, 5 days. Ms. Lee, Sunday 10 a.m. Mom, trying. Internet. Maybe quiet, maybe not. Jake, a moving target. I must have dozed, because the next thing I knew I was upright in bed to the sound of claws skittering on wood and a low, strange sound I couldn't place. Buddy was in the doorway, legs stiff, head pulled back, eyes glassy. He stumbled, tried to correct, and his whole body seized, sudden, violent, like an invisible hand had grabbed him and shaken. I was off the bed and on the floor next to him in a second that felt like an hour. It's okay, buddy, I said, voice trying hard not to break. I'm here. I'm here. His legs paddled, jaws clacked, foam at the edges of his mouth. Panic hammered the inside of my skull. I reached for the emergency bag with hands that didn't feel like mine and fumbled the paper with the rescue med instructions, the words blurring, time stretching thin and bright like a wire I could snap if I breathed wrong. And then my phone buzzed on the nightstand with an incoming call, the screen glowing Jake's name across the dark. The seizure lasted less than a minute, but it felt like forever. Buddy's legs stiffened, his jaws clacked, and foam built at his mouth. I had the emergency meds in my hand, shaking so badly I almost dropped the syringe. Luckily, Alicia was calm. I'll do it, she whispered. You just keep him safe. When the tremors slowed and finally stopped, Buddy went limp against the blanket, chest rising fast but steady. My phone buzzed, Jake calling from a noisy train station. He just had a seizure, I said. Jake laughed nervously at first, then heard my tone. What? No, he barely ever. Are you sure? He's at the ER tonight, I snapped. I paid a $900 deposit. You'll reimburse me. I didn't wait for an answer before hanging up. The emergency vet kept him overnight. I sat in the waiting room until 2 a.m., staring at my receipt like it was a confession. When they finally said he was stable, I walked home through empty streets, bone-tired. By morning, Jake still hadn't transferred a dime. I texted, if you don't pay and sign the boarding contract today, I'll escalate this as abandonment. His reply came instantly, wow. I showed the message to Alicia, who just said softly, he doesn't get it yet. But you're right, Buddy needs a plan today. I nodded, exhausted but certain I wasn't budging. At 10 a.m., my neighbor Alvarez knocked with a man in a polo, Marco, staff at the boarding facility. We can hold Buddy's spot, Marco explained, but we need written owner consent. Email, date of birth, last 4 of license digits. No consent, no intake. I immediately messaged Jake. Send the email now, or Buddy loses his boarding tomorrow. He whined about spotty train service, but 20 minutes later Marco's phone pinged. He did it. Authorization's valid. I almost cried in relief. At noon, I picked Buddy up from the vet. He bounded toward me, weaker but still wagging. The doctor reminded me, he needs predictability. Routine. No more chaos. Back home a mess. Lee slipped a note under my door. Sunday, 10 a.m. Deadline still stands. By Saturday, Buddy was stable. I'd arranged his food, meds, and crate. Marco texted me updates for the intake. At dawn Sunday, Alvarez drove me and Alicia to drop him off. Seeing Buddy calmly step into the crate at the facility broke something open in me. I wasn't failing him. I was finally doing right by him. But when I got home, a text from Jake popped up. Why won't you let Tommy visit him? You're being controlling. I typed back, no visitors. End of discussion. He sent back a single thumbs up. The first update from Marco came an hour later. A picture of Buddy chewing peanut butter from a Kong, ears relaxed. Settled after 10 minutes. No tremors. I forwarded it to Jake. He replied, cute. Can you ask them to send me more? Email them yourself. I answered. By midweek, Buddy was thriving. The staff sent videos of him calmly choosing the crate, even snoozing while someone read nearby. Each update felt like proof I wasn't the villain Jake painted me as. But Jake wasn't done stirring. On Thursday, Marco called. Owner requested we add a visitor named Tommy to the pickup list. He says you'll confirm. No, I said firmly. Owner only, with ID. No third parties. That night, Jake blew up my phone. Why are you blocking my friends? It's my dog. Because you abandoned him at my door, I texted back. You don't get to outsource more chaos. He's safe where he is. Silence. Then finally, confirmation. Jake had paid the boarding bill in full. For the first time in weeks, I slept without waiting for a knock at the door. By Friday, even Mom admitted I'd been right. I pushed too hard, she said on the phone. You're not 12 anymore. You don't just do what we tell you. Her words loosened something in my chest. Jake, though, was still stubborn. He texted, I might come home early. This trip sucks now. Fine, I replied. If you're back, you take over fully. That Sunday, Marco texted. Buddy had one small tremor, but self-resolved. Eating well. Owner called again, pushing for early pickup. We said no without your sign-off. It was the first time anyone had put my word above Jake's. On Tuesday, Jake finally cracked. I'm flying home Wednesday. I can't enjoy this. Everyone's mad at me. Relief. Real, solid relief. Wednesday morning, Mom texted a picture of him at the airport. He's coming back. I'm proud of you for holding your line. I believed her this time. At the boarding facility, Jake looked worn down, dark circles under his eyes, hair flattened by travel. When Buddy saw him, though, it was like the whole world snapped into place. He bounded across the lobby, tail wagging so hard his whole body wagged with it. Jake dropped to his knees and buried his face in Buddy's fur. The sound he made wasn't words. It was something raw, the kind of noise people make when they're finally safe. Marco slid a clipboard toward me. We just need your signature here to close the intake record. Policy, after a third-party handoff. I signed. For the first time since Jake tied Buddy to my railing, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. Outside, in the cool sunlight, Jake shifted awkwardly. I posted things I shouldn't have, he said quietly. Made you the villain. I just wanted people on my side. I'm sorry. I nodded. Thank you. I'm not sorry for saying no, though. I couldn't let you make my life the plan for your trip. He rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, I get that now. I thought being spontaneous made me fun. Turns out it just made me irresponsible. We stood in silence for a moment, Buddy leaning against Jake's legs like a golden anchor. I'll pay you back for the ER and everything, Jake added. Might take me a bit, but I will. I'm not chasing you for it, I said. That's on you. He gave a small, tired laugh. You're good at sentences like that. Occupational hazard, I replied. We didn't hug, but we didn't fight either. It felt like the first time we'd met in the middle in years. When Jake lifted Buddy into the car and buckled him into his harness, I felt a strange mix of relief and grief. Relief that it was over, grief because part of me already missed the sound of his paws on my floor. But I also knew I'd done the right thing, for Buddy and for myself. Jake waved once before pulling away. I watched until the car disappeared around the corner. Back inside, my apartment was quiet again. Not the heavy, suffocating quiet of guilt, but the kind of quiet that meant safety, stability, and finally, peace. I opened the window. Fresh air moved through the room, carrying the faint sound of kids playing down the block. For the first time in weeks, I let myself smile. Buddy was safe. Jake had learned something, maybe. And me? I'd finally learned that saying no isn't selfish. Sometimes, it's the only way forward.